Next, we're going to look at the Openstack release cycles. Openstack releases are interesting in how they're done. Firstly, they're named alphabetically, kind of like storms, so they're easy to remember if you look at the order of the first letter of the name. They're continuously released through, pardon the pun, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So these rapid release cycles use the cycle where we plan, develop, integrated testing is done, which creates a release, and then roundabout we go back into the development cycle. There are many vendors that are actually deploying directly to trunk. So you can deploy and pull down from trunk every day, and we have continuous integration and continuous deployment into that platform. OpenStack release dates have been very aggressive. We talked about them being in inception in 2010. Well, imagine that October 21st, 2010 was the first release, and that was Project Austin, thus the A. And they've gone along from Bexar to Cactus to Diablo, etc., 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 all the way down. And in fact, we've just released Icehouse April 17th of 2014. So in only 4 short years, all of these releases have come out with incredible innovation at every step. The most recent release, which is most widely used at this point, is Havana. At the point of the release of this course, Icehouse has just come out, and we're heading into the next release in October of 2014, which is going to be Juno. Within OpenStack, there's something called projects. The idea behind projects is a modular infrastructure that makes OpenStack a very simple environment to grow and develop and to be able to upgrade and move around. Now, upgrading has been a bit of a challenge in some of the early releases for certain features and certain projects, but that's getting better and better with every single release. So looking at the way that this is done, they generally separate the compute, the networking, and the storage. Underneath those are shared services, and then it's delivered through a dashboard. Every single module is accessed through an API. So all of these components have become modular, and that's around that flexibility. Rigidity with tightly bound and tightly coupled environments creates a problem down the road for upgradability and lots of other promotion and change within the environment. It also adds better interoperability for not just internal, but also for third-party products. And again, APIs are very important, especially when we're talking about OpenStack or any cloud environment, but particularly OpenStack. Each project itself actually has its own project leader or a project team lead. They'll be called a PTL, and you'll hear that phrase come up every once in a while. The project process is a whole exciting program. I'm not going to go through every step of the way, but you can see in general, this is the flow that happens as a launchpad is created for a project itself, and then groups are aligned around it, including development, test, drivers are created where needed. Ultimately, that all comes through the project team lead and through the project team. And then the release manager is what ultimately packs it up and sends it out the door, pushes that trunk, and then we're ready to go with the next release of OpenStack. We use a few different terms when we talk about project. Now, core projects are what we call fully supported. There's also projects that are going to be called incubation projects, and that's generally where the new feature sets come from. There's a lot of projects that are always under development, or at least beginning to be under development in an OpenStack environment. We won't go through a large list, but just know that an idea gets to a launch pad, and it could become an incubation project, and it may reach a point where it gets merged to another project, or it may grow a standalone core project down the road. Ultimately, the testing regimen that happens against a project is determined by its status as well. So when we talk about fully supported core projects, there's a very strict testing regimen that's wrapped around that with unit tests, and ultimately that goes back into the machine that handles the release cycles. Well, hopefully this has been a good general view of what the Openstack Foundation is and how the very high-level Openstack project structure works. Don't worry, we're going to go diving in much more as we move forward. And now that we know how it evolved and how Openstack project basics work, it's time to get on to the good stuff, and we're going to dive right in and take a look at some Openstack projects.